Hey, what's good YouTube? This is Hydra VGC here, back at it again with some more content for y'all. And in this video I'm going to be going over Iron Thorns, which is a Pokemon that a lot of people have their eye on. It's a really cool looking Pokemon, but it just has very big weaknesses. But I'm going to go quickly over this team. Well, I have two teams to showcase, but this one I would say is probably a little more easier to use and a lot stronger. So the thing with both of these teams is that I actually won a few tournaments with both of them, believe it or not. At least with this team that I'm explaining right now, I'll quickly go over the replays I made on it, just to help kind of explain my thought process and all that. But if you've seen this team, at least from looking at it first glance, it looks somewhat similar. At least Cord does. You know, these three over here. I found a new niche for Iron Bundle that a lot of people don't know about yet, or maybe they've seen it, it's just not that popular right now. But okay, so the main combo is just the same combo as one of my older videos, you know, with Palafin. Palafin is actually what people use this combo with, but I actually found that this is one of the only other Pokemon in the game that has access to Flip Turn, and I guess you could debate which one is better, but I would say Iron Bundle at least has more utility and is just as fast, just because if you opt to run Palafin, you have to kind of scarf it just so that you have enough speed to outspeed some of the more popular meta threats, which could pose a problem, especially when you want this this combination over here to go off at least 95% of the time, where you feel like it's going to be very important to bring it in, or where you feel it's going to give you a good enough lead to where the rest of your team can kind of like hold off or whatever. But the thing with Iron Bundle 2 is that it has access to Freeze Dry, which is super effective against water types, and Palafin doesn't actually have access to that. So you kind of sacrifice using Palafin. You get like physically strong attacks, but you kind of sacrifice you know, the water, I guess, weakness or strength, or however you want to call it. You basically won't be able to hit water types when you really should be hitting them, because you don't have too many ways to super effectively hit water types, and his team, at least the way this one is built, is actually somewhat weak to water types. So it's one thing to keep in mind. And Iron Bundle, you have very different versions you can run. You can run for a speed control version with Icy Wind. You could go offensive with Hydro Pump, or utility with Freeze Dry. So this thing can kind of do it all. Like I said, only downside is you will sacrifice Protect, but that's why you opt to run Focus Sash instead of Booster Energy, which Booster Energy could technically kind of solve some issues that Iron Bundle has too, especially in matchups where you're going up against like a lead Scarf Pokemon. So at least with this version, I opted more for Focus Sash. I feel like Focus Sash, you get more value out of it, and it gives you more options, because sometimes you want to, like, you can lead both of these, but you would want to like Protect first turn, and you know your Iron Bundle does not have Protect, but you can probably go for like Icy Wind that turn and then go for Flip Turn, especially if they have like a Scarf or something a lot faster than you. The EVs that I have on my Armarouge here should be like more than enough for anything, and like I said, this is 2 points faster than Annihilate, so that, like I said, there's a lot of Terra Grass on this team just because the defensive typing is good, which is another thing to note. And this Indeedee is just a basic Indeedee set, you know, max HP, max defense, bold, Terra type Dark just to help against Taunt and all of that. Opted to go for Psychic just for extra damage as well. Same with Rocky Helmet. Standard stuff, it's nothing too special. The only thing I would say, at least from my previous version of this team that I changed up, would probably be the Iron Bundle Palafin, because the Iron Bundle's been working a lot more, I guess, efficient, because you also surprisingly don't take as much damage. This should have been at 0, my bad. You don't take as much damage from your Flip Turn on your Armarouge, because this thing is not that physically strong. So that's another thing to note that could be very I guess I could persuade you to want to use Iron Bundle over Palafin in that situation. But yeah, and then you have your standard Hawklucha set from my previous video. Only difference is I'd say I modified the last move or whatever, and I opted for Feint just to help against your expanding force, wide guard shenanigans that will happen because they like to use wide guard against this team a lot. And you also run Rock Slide, so Feint is a great move to have on this team just because you get more value out of it, and Hawklucha is just a strong Pokemon. It never hurts to run. A lot of people don't know, but the combination here, like I said, just in case you don't know, is Psychic Seed procs off of a Psychic Surge. So then that will then proc Unburden, which will double your speed, which, you know, losing the item also procs Acrobatics, which doubles in power when you have no items. So you get 110 base attack move, and you get a lot of speed and all that, and access to Feint in close combat. And kind of like how I ran it was more of if you feel like you don't need Hawklucha or Fighting Stab for that instant, you can swap out Hawklucha for Roaring Moon, which kind of does the same thing with Acrobatics and Flying type, but like Roaring Moon offers more bulk on the especially defensive side, I guess, if not for like the seed, because sometimes you will have to use close combat, you'll lose a seed and you'll go back to like 84 or Spadef, but it's not that big of a problem. Roaring Moon is also like it hits harder, it's a lot faster, and overall it's just a solid Pokemon. But usually you would swap out these two just so you know, or sometimes you might even bring both of them together. It just depends on the matchup. And you know, sometimes if you lead this guy, Iron Thorns can kind of like cover for some weaknesses, just because this thing can take a hit or two, like from Flutter Mane or Iron Bundle to some extent. You might be able to catch it off guard with the Tera Grass and KO it if you're lucky, depending on how they play or not. But Iron Thorns can definitely take a hit or two. I will say that. That's definitely one of the big niches that he has on this team composition. It's just his ability to take a hit. So that's one thing to keep in mind also. And yeah, this team is just solid. Like I said, I have a few replays here from one of the tournaments I have recently played in. I'll just go over my thought process and all of that, and I'll quickly go over the other team that I have, which is I guess the hard version of this team that y'all are more than welcome to run or play or experiment. But so over here, oh my bad, this is not the team right here. So this team, if you don't know about these three right here, if you played older VGC, you would kind of know how these two synergize. But basically, Telepathy stops Earthquake. Earthquake can be spammed with Roll and Wash because of Levitate. Roll and Wash has access to Discharge, which Garchomp, due to its ground immunity, and Gardevoir over here because of Telepathy is actually immune to. And then on top of that, Gardevoir kind of offers more of I guess utility role in that it helps with Trick Room, Mystical Fire, Moonblast, and all of that stuff. And this Gardevoir, I gave it Covert Cloak just for because usually when you bring Gardevoir, you're always going to bring it against Trick Room, and Trick Room they like to fake out, so having access to Covert Cloak helps. And plus it's just a good item on Gardevoir. At least from testing, it's been actually working very remarkably well. Like, there are situations where I forget it has Covert Cloak and I'm like, wait, this didn't work? Oh, because it has Covert Cloak. Well, there you go. It's just a great move, great item to have on Gardevoir, in my opinion. And I may or may not continue to run it this way, but so far I've been really liking the Covert Cloak on Gardevoir. Just because you kind of force your opponent to not lead Iron Hand so much, because you will punish them badly if they do lead for Iron Hand. So you just disrupt Trick Room enough to where you can probably outplay your way out of it, if that makes sense. And that's kind of how you play this Gardevoir. Garchomp, it's a Garchomp. It's a standard set. Nothing too special. Rock Slide, Earthquake, Iron Head, Clear Amulet. Usually with these two, Clear Amulet. So a lot of people don't know, Intimidate is actually coming back. So you want to be very well prepared for Intimidate. Especially Arcanine. Arcanine is a thing that likes to come in on this Garchomp for some reason. But Garchomp has Earthquake and all that to kind of like answer the Arcanine. So you don't really have to worry too much about that. And like I said, I've been liking the set also. Truth be told, I actually play with this team a lot more than the other one, just because this team is a lot more fun to play. Just because of all the options you have. And Roll and Wash over here, 107 speed again. Under Tailwind, this should be more than enough to outspeed Iron Bundle and Dragapult and all that. So opted more for a bulky set with the Aghav Berry or whatever. Discharge, Hydro Pump, Protect. Some of y'all might say Thunder Wave over Will-O-Wisp. It's just personal preference, but I feel like I miss Will-O-Wisp a lot more, and I don't really need it that much. And I think I get more value out of spamming Thunder Wave with like Walk Slide, Flinch, Hacks, and all that. It's bad to say, but kind of sometimes you might actually come across a situation where you're going to lose unless you hacks your way out of the games. So that kind of like, it'll help those really rare scenarios where you need hacks to win. So it kind of like persuades it in your favor, running Thunder Wave. And again, like I run double Rock Slide on this team, so the Thunder Wave, you get a lot of value out of Thunder Wave over running something like Will-O-Wisp or whatever. And again, this is the same Tyranitar set as the other build, so I'll quickly go over some of the other sets you can actually technically run with Tyranitar. So another really good one is Tera type Flying, and if you opt to run Flying on this team, you can actually lead Garchomp and Tyranitar, which I guess would be good, but it's not necessary. That's why I kind of went more for Grass, just because Grass can still, again, bait in Water types and Ground types and all that to help. Not that you have a bad matchup against Water types, because you have access to Wild Charge. But another variant that you can actually technically run would be Quark Drive with like the terrain, electric terrain, because I did actually try to experiment running electric terrain on this team, and it's just a little too hard. Well, it's not hard, it's just I think it's too slow right now. It could change when like Tapu Koko or whatever comes out. But as of right now, I'd say this is probably more of the safer version of Iron Thorns that you could probably run. Flying is still good, like I said, just because it mitigates your major ground weakness. But the problem is, usually when you're baiting those ground types or whatever, you're not going to hit them that hard with your Tera Flying. And Tera Grass sometimes might even like one-shot most threats that come in. So that's kind of like my thought process, at least on like why I chose Grass over Flying or whatever. And like I said, you know, the offensive Tera Electric, Life Orb, Quark Drive, a Wild Charge under, you know, Electric Terrain, that is like probably one of the stronger wall breaking like combinations out there. But again, here's the problem. Iron Hands technically fulfills that role a lot better, just because Iron Hands also has access to Focus Energy also. So like, if you just need a wall breaker, you don't even need to commit that much. You can just, you know, use Focus Energy Iron Hands. So that's kind of like, it's just really hard to like build for Iron Thorns, I would say. And that's its major weaknesses. It looks really badass. It's a really well designed Pokemon. It's just, you know, I feel like they just messed up on Iron Thorns and what it wanted to do. I think as a special attacker it would have probably fulfilled the niche a lot better, but that's just my personal opinion on it. And obviously this is just a standard Murkrow Haze for Dondozo, Foul Play. Thunder Wave, again, as you see, I have the additional speed control in Thunder Wave just to help out my my Rock Slide, you know, bullshit that I'm basically going for. So it's kind of it's standard. It's a good Pokemon. Tera type goes just because I don't run Protect, and in case I need my Tailwind to go off and they have Fake Out or Foul Play or Haze or whatever, that's what the Tera type is for. Because with this team, you really don't Tera type as much as you think you do, but it's just like the team is so pivot heavy. You'll Tera type into whatever you feel like would be necessary in that scenario, if that makes sense. Not so much that, like, you know, you lead in, you know, Tera Flying, Roaring Moon, and you're almost always going to go for that Tera type. This team is just more of, if you feel like the Tera is necessary there, go for it. If not, try not to go for it, because it already has most of the weaknesses covered already. And a lot of teams nowadays, they abuse the Tera, just to like kind of like mitigate that weakness, but it kind of limits your potential to I guess have access to all the utility that a team could provide or whatever, if that makes sense. But I'll go over my Venomoth here. This is just me playing around, but it can actually do some stuff for those who don't know what Venomoth does. It's just more of a, I could actually run a Moongus here, but the reason why I chose to run the Venomoth is just for this combination of Acid Spray and sleep powder. You have access to acid spray, so the EVs here is I'm 1 point faster than Gardevoir and my Rotom. Well, obviously faster than Rotom, but you kind of you click acid spray and whatever you hit with Moonblast is going to take a lot of damage. So it's kind of like if you feel like you want more offensive pressure leading on, you can go for this. And most people don't really know what it does, so that's also kind of like the fact of why I run it. And it also has access to skill swap, so I'll kind of go over this combo or whatever with y'all, just to kind of explain why, you know, I have Venomoth on here over Amoonguss. It's just more of a, I could run Amoonguss like I said, but I already have Haze over here, so the clear smog utility is kind of like not that necessary for me. It would just be overkill, and I kind of needed more special attacking damage, which I guess I could go for Gengar or something else, but like I'll be honest, this is just filler, but it still works. It's not like it's not gonna do anything. This Pokemon is still a threat. And Rage Powder, obviously you know what that does, but skill swap, so you can actually skill swap Tinted Lens onto your Garchomp over here, or sometimes even Gardevoir, it just depends, but usually you could skill swap onto like Rotom also. Your Venomoth will get Levitate or Telepathy, which means you can actually spam what you're spamming with Garchomp, but you can give Tinted Lens to Garchomp. Yeah, you'll lose Rough Skin, but the best thing about this would be that like even grass types are just going to take neutral to your Earthquake. Basically, Tinted Lens just turns anything that's not very effective into just a normal attacking move. It doubles the attack, but the premise is that not super effective attacks lose half of their attack, but with Tinted Lens you gain half of the attack, so really it could just say your not very effective attacks could just do normal damage, and that's literally what it does. So that's kind of why I run it too. It just gives my team a lot more damage. But you do sacrifice 25% accuracy on instead of like Spore or whatever, but like I'd say having the utility of Acid Spray and, you know, being able to run this like really niche random move kind of like offsets, you know, the 25% accuracy decrease in Sleep Powder. But yeah, that's kind of my team. I'll go over the replays and I'll just explain my thought process quickly over it. But yeah, for the most part, if I had more time, I could probably like actually make like a much more efficient version of this team. But my time is just not. I just don't have that much time at the moment. But I'm still trying to crank out some content for my YouTube channel, just because I do enjoy making these videos and I do like helping people out. So I can try and help them out in any way I can with like these random like Pokemon that people don't really like, I guess, look over, because like some of these are cool. Like Iron Thorns, I wish they designed it a lot better, but it just sucks, unfortunately. But I mean, it's fine. You can't really do much about it. It's already too late. And Tera still helps. So yeah, I'll go over the replays real quick, and I'll just if I have time, maybe I can get like a live game or whatever. But more than likely, I think I'm already like about to be 20 minutes on this video, so I'll just go over the replays. I'll just explain to y'all, and like I said, thank you for the support. Again, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, or any of that stuff, because all that support still helps me out, and it might motivate me to want to like make even more videos. So again, thank you, and I'll go over the videos right now. Alright, now that we got the replays going, I'll quickly go over my thought process on some of these matches, and I'll kind of explain why I did this, what could have happened, and all that stuff. But okay, so my first matchup was kind of against like a really interesting like Trick Roomy Snow team with like, I guess, these guys over here, but you still don't want to underestimate these kinds of teams just because it's a very bulky offensive kind of team with like some speed control. And for some that don't know, this well is actually really fast. It has like a lot of HP, I believe base 170 or something like that. And I think it can get to like 200 plus speed, so that's something that you do not want to play around like this kind of core. And I'll let y'all know that my lead here was kind of like, I didn't really see any redirection, I didn't really see any like dark types, so I'm like, that's usually a clear cut go-to to want to like try and go for the combo. And I'd say the only reason why I didn't play passive here first is just for the sake of Trick Room. I guess my thought process with like this would be do this, go for the combo. Fergraph lives, that's one thing to know. It's always going to take like 50 or something. Fergraph goes for Trick Room. I swap into my my Indeedee female here, and I go for Trick Room to counteract his Trick Room while I protect the next turn. But it just depends. I'd say my opponent going for Ice Spinner that turn is not really like the best play. Just because I believe killing the Indeedee would have been, well, not killing, knocking out, my bad. If we just want to get technical here. Knocking out the Indeedee would have been a lot better, just because the whole premise of why you would go for Ice Spinner in that situation rather than killing is just to get rid of the terrain, right? But since my Indeedee really didn't really die or anything, I still got up Psychic Terrain. So that's kind of like those situations where you would want to go back and forth on whether it's good to go for this really niche move to like stop something. In my case it'd be to stop my team, or go for like a knockout move. It just depends, but I guess it didn't really work out for my opponent because the Dragonite died, unfortunately. And yeah, I did actually like slightly mess up with that feint there, but I did not know that either. But yeah, I make mistakes too, I'm not perfect. But this game kind of like it wasn't too difficult, but I'd say my opponent messed up at the start. Kind of like what I thought he would go for, he really, or she didn't really go for, and that threw me off. And it just didn't, it didn't work out for my opponent, just because my opponent was just too far behind at that point to like try and recover. I believe if my opponent went for Trick Room to try and slow me down, I think that would have been a better play. But you can't really you can't always predict what's going to happen, because what you think might happen won't happen, and you still got to kind of play around it. But yeah, in this situation, that's how the first game went. So now we'll go over the second game. And looking at my opponent, it looks like my opponent has like a really Trick Roomy mode with like a lot of speed. And I didn't know this during the time, but my opponent actually played Sunny Day Fergraph, which threw me off, but it worked out to my benefit because I opted to go for the same combination again. My opponent didn't really have like a dark type other than like Roaring Moon, which I figured, the odds of my opponent leading Roaring Moon are probably high, but like I can handle Roaring Moon with Iron Bundles, so it's not that big of a deal. I still just went for it just in case my opponent went for something else. But they opted to go for like Sunny Day, Photosynthesis, Dark typing, Roaring Moon, and all that. And I'd say my opponent got a little greedy going for like this Dragon Dance. I'd say maybe they probably thought I would switch out or something, just because I wasn't able to go for the Expanding Force stuff. But I decided to take advantage of the weather and go for the Armor Cannon, which maybe my opponent expected, or maybe they thought they'd be faster or something. We don't really know in the end of the day unless you actually ask my opponent, but yeah, that's kind of like how that went. I was actually faster also, so I believe that was kind of that was interesting. And I opted, okay, so I'll explain this one right here and to why like playing defended castle strats can be good, but like the glaring weakness is that like in this situation I could have probably tried to protect like my, okay, so here's how it would go. Flutter Mane, they have a move to kill my armors, right? A Shadow Ball. and I have redirection. I can go for follow me, so it'll redirect the Shadow Ball, which will protect my Armor Rouge. But the whole point was, like, I had two options. I can try and kill this Farigiraf, because I figured the Farigiraf would go for Trick Room and try and win with like Torkoal or Hatterene in the back, based on how my opponent was playing. Very fast hyper offense at the start. But another thing too to note would be that, like, I could go for Expanding Force and do as much damage as possible, and then hope my Iron Thorns can clean up, because I know Iron Thorns can take a hit from Hatterene and Torkoal, just because of its rock typing. But what I wasn't prepared for would be, like, if my opponent decides to go for I'd say maybe Protect on Farigiraf, and, you know, Flutter Mane goes for like Dazzling Gleam and knocks me out, then goes for Trick Room next turn. Like, there's many different things that could have happened here, but my thought process is just like, my Armor Rouge did enough damage, like, I could waste time protecting it, but I mean, I'm just gonna like go for Expanding Force, let it die, and what happens happens. I wasn't that threatened by like the rest of his end game so much, because his end game at that point would have been Dragapult, Hatterene, Torkoal, which my Iron Thorns can actually handle all three of them very remarkably well. So I was not that worried. That's why I went for what I went for, which worked out for me in that case, because okay, so the Flutter Mane had a what's it called, Focus Sash also, so that would have set me behind 2 turns, I believe, because I would have had to waste 1 turn attacking it with my AoE move, take a lot of damage from like his counter move, and then try and see if I can kill it again. But in that case, because I kind of figured he had the sash on him, because I saw it on open team sheet, I opted to just go for the Expanding Force. When in any other situation, either I might have gone for the Armored Cannon or like Protect, you know. So it just depends. And obviously here, you know, Helping Hand, Wild Charge is more than enough to kill the Hatterene, which Hatterene is still a good Pokemon. I wouldn't underestimate it by any means, but it just kind of fell off just because it lost Expanding Force, which was one of its strongest combinations, which again Armor Rouge kind of took from it. So that's kind of how this game went. It was kind of like just prepare for your weaknesses, which I did, and it worked out for me. So yeah. And then I went to the third game, which I played against like 3 dark types and Garganacl. So my Armor Rouge combination 100% is never ever going off turn 1 unless my opponent, like, for some reason doesn't respect it enough, which I believe my opponent does respect it. So kind of like how this one went was, I would have to kind of play around with some of my other options, which that's why I have the Hawklucha for. The Hawklucha is just to help against fighting types and all that, which in this situation it actually worked out. Same with the Psychic Seed. You'll see when the Psychic Seed actually, it makes a difference in like its Spadef. So right here my opponent actually outplays me. I didn't really anticipate Tera Flying Crocodile, but I guess my opponent did, and I got punished for that. But because my opponent went for Crunch on Indeedee, it kind of was wasted slightly, I would say. And then, as you can see, the Psychic Seed actually helped my Hawklucha live that attack, that Volt Switch from the Belly Bolt. So that's why I run that kind of move. And I got a crit here. I believe that might have actually mattered, but it was kind of like Helping Hand neutral from like an Adamant Hawklucha. Like, I know that thing is tanky, I don't know, it might have mattered, it might have not, but I was also like Tera fighting, so it's just kind of like a mixed bag. Yeah, over here my Hawklucha goes down. So here's a very important thing to why sometimes you don't want to like go for the combination right away. My opponent crunched my Armor Rouge, which procced everything. I don't know if that was a mistake by my opponent, or maybe he forgot, or he thought he would kill my Armor Rouge or whatever, but Armor Rouge is actually really tanky, believe it or not, because usually these weakness policy weak armor strats are used on like really frail looking Pokemon, so those strats are kind of like they're kind of hard to use sometimes, but not really. because some weak armor Pokemon are typically like ghost type, so they're kind of like immune to some priority moves. But in this situation, he procced my my Armor Rouge, and my Armor Rouge hit really hard with like a counter attack, as you'll see right now, which costed my opponent the entire game. Like, that one mistake is the reason why I believe my opponent lost all the momentum, and that's kind of why I run the Armor Rouge. The Armor Rouge helps regain a lot of momentum back, just in case you lose some. As you can see, you know, the game's over at that point. And like I said, my opponent brought some really interesting stuff, which I didn't expect, so props to him, or her, or whatever. So yeah, after I won this one, now I went to the finals. And like I said, this was like a 24 person tournament. It was nothing too big. I just went 4-0 with this team. But for my other matchups, like I said, I went 5-0 twice with this team, and then the other team I went 5-0 once, and then like a 3-0, which was a tournament I played like at midnight or something. I think there was only like 16 people or something. I don't know. I didn't play that many games during that one. But I'd say out of both teams, this one is a little bit more easier to play. The other one, you have to be really good at predicting like switch-ins and pivoting and all that stuff. So I'd say this one's a little more beginner friendly if you just want like something that has Iron Thorns in it that can like do remarkably well in like tournament settings and all that. And my opponent's team, my opponent actually has like, I'd say their team is very utility based. They have answers to every single popular thing in the entire game, is what I'm trying to get at. Like, they have an offensive special attacker, they have intimidate, snarl stuff, they have speed control with the iron bundle, they have trick room control on top of the, well, it depends if they run that move or not, but they have Dondozo checks / answers with this. Goldengo's just Goldengo. It's just a really strong Pokemon, and they have some Tailwind support with Roaring Moon here, so you can't really predict too much against these teams. You just kind of have to like go in and fight. That's all you can do, because they have answers to pretty much everything at that point. And I figured my opponent would go for like a Moongus and try and redirect my my Iron Bundle, and this was open team sheet. My opponent did actually know I ran Terra Grass on my Iron Bundle, but probably forgot. And this is specifically why I run Terra Grass, just for this like random popular like scenario that's going to happen at some point, where your opponent's going to have Rage Powder and you really need your combination to go off. As you can see, I still went for Icy Wind that turn. I figured my opponent would just Rage Powder and try and kill my Iron Bundle. My Iron Bundle didn't really take as much damage as I thought it would, so that kind of worked out for me. And obviously, you know, I went for like the standard expanding force stuff here, which kills the Amoongus or whatever. Then my opponent goes for Tailwind, so here I would actually have to go for my Trick Room play, because my opponent would have to predict a double targeting move on my Indeedee, which was kind of like a hard read because I have so much offensive pressure with Armor Rouge over here. And depending on like the Arcanine set, I could technically still be faster than the Arcanine, so my opponent would have to attack Armor Rouge to protect the Arcanine. But in this situation, for my opponent to get like the distinct advantage, my opponent would actually have to double target the Indeedee. So you can see kind of like where I put my opponent in a situation where it would be a little hard for him or her to like kind of like read this scenario, because really the best scenario would be to like double target Indeedee and try and KO it, which my opponent is very much capable of doing with the Roaring Moon and Arcanine over here. But as you can see, my best play here would be just to protect and Trick Room and hope I get the speed control under the Trick Room. But my opponent went for like a passive kind of play, which I think costed him the match, or her. Going for double Snarl is good, but like it's too passive when you're going up against an offensive threat, and you're going up against Trick Room, which my opponent probably didn't really like. Probably got a little too comfortable with, because they lost their only answer to Trick Room, which was Amoongus. So it just depends. I don't know the thought process with my opponent, but I know my thought process here would be that, which obviously, as you can see, it worked out in my favor. As you can see, I just go for the expanding force, spam stuff, and yeah. It's like I said, mostly in these tournaments, the Indeedee Armaru stuff is going to be carrying the Iron Thorns stuff, but like, I'd say even like if you just, you know, cut Hawklucha, Iron Thorns, Roaring Moon, and you just have the Indeedee female Iron Bundle and Armarouge like core as a whole, those three Pokemon, they have answers to like a lot of popular threats, which means you have more room to kind of like experiment, which was kind of like the whole premise behind the team and why I made it this way. Just so I have like a strong mode, I have an experimental mode, and that's all I've been doing really with these teams, just experimenting a lot. And yeah, I guess I could technically show replays to my other team, but the issue is I just don't have time. And I think I lost the replays too, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you can believe me if you think I won them or not. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, I'm just here trying to help y'all out, that's all. And try and give y'all hope with a lot of these Pokemon that people like to talk shit about. Mainly Iron Thorns, people trash on it. Yeah, I get it, you know, it's a bad Pokemon, I used it, but it's not as bad as people think. It has some use. It's just really hard to use, that's all. But yeah, I mean, if you like all my stuff, and I plan on working on maybe like a Sandy Shocks team for like, I guess my next team, because as far as Iron Thorns goes, I'm kind of done experimenting with Iron Thorns. It took a lot out of me, and it's fun, but it's just like, there's other Pokemon too that I kind of like want to mess around with. So yeah, I'll just have to end the whole Iron Thorn saga for now. I may or may not come back to it, maybe in the future when more Pokemon come out, but yeah, like I said, next team I probably might go for Sandy Shocks and some strats with that, maybe Gravity or something, we'll see. And like I said, if you like my stuff, subscribe, share, comment, all that stuff, and see ya later.